participation in a state and national level committee for institutional and strengthening watershed projects since 1994. Concept promotion of Marathwada watershed mission and contribution in IWMP through policy studies. He has worked for a community empowerment, decentralized planning, integration of social sector and rural livelihood. Often he has played a facilitator for convenience of various levels within the government departments, agencies agencies and schemes at project level and approaches at district level. Now I request Mr. Jayant Patil to give a speech. आवाज येतो दुसऱ्यांचे.
Please mute the mic, other people, please, because we are getting disturbance.
Yes.
Hello. Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Yeah. I hope I am audible.
Yes.
Jain sir,
Okay, fine.
kindly unmute yourself.
Jain sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Acha, one small request. Probably I am unable to share my screen. The host needs to enable my screen sharing.
Speaker.
Jayant Patil Greener. Yeah.
तुम्हाला ऐकू येतं? धीरज आपला स्पीकर चालू कर ना प्लीज.
और ते स्क्रीन शेअरिंग द्या जयंत पाटलांना.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. Is my screen visible?
Yes,
Yes.
sir.
Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So we start. Yeah. I welcome all the delegates for this webinar. We have a very peculiar topic, necessity of water conservation for sustainability. And we will be dealing this topic with a fast pace because we have a scope of a basic orientation for all of us. And we also would like to see the concerns related to water conservation. So I would rather request you to have some watery bumps or ride through bumpy waters and have some basic experience and some contemporary issues also. This presentation is in 5 sections, and we will be dealing with some introductory part, overview, then water resources, concerns, and the way forward. I hope to finish it in next 25 minutes as decided by the organizers. For an introduction of water, let's have a self-introduction for regarding our some basic knowledge about water. I have posed a few basic questions. I would request you to attempt all these questions simultaneously, and then in the next slide we will see the answers. And you can assess for your own. It's not a test or something like that, but just a quiz. Of the total water on Earth, how much is in oceans? Is there water on other planets? Water boils more quickly on Kalsubai Peak than on Marine Drive. Is this statement true or false? Water contracts when it freezes. What part of iceberg is seen floating in oceans? At what temperature will water evaporate? And do you agree that water cycle is driven by evapotranspiration? Let's see the answers. 97% of the total Earth water is in oceans. Yes, there is water on other planets on in some various forms. It's also observed in comets, on moons of some planets. Water boils quickly on Kalsubai Peak than in Marine Drive. Yes, true, because the boiling point changes with height. Water contracts when it freezes, falls. It actually expands, and at 4 degrees centigrade, actually it contracts. 1/8 of the tip of the iceberg is seen floating in the oceans, and water can evaporate at any temperature above 4 degrees centigrade. Only there should be a difference of temperature between the two systems. And this is a personal response kind of. Do you agree that water cycle is driven by evapotranspiration? Fine. So we start with some unique characteristics of water. This is something. What Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam used to say. Like when you are dealing with some difficult problems, start with the basics. So what is the unique nature of water because of which it becomes so important? One is it has a polar nature. The H2O molecule has partial charge. It has cohesion capacity. It has adhesion capacity. It has capillary action, because of which it rises from roots to leaves against the gravity. It has an anomalous tendency while freezing. It is a universal solvent, and many of the ions and hydrophilic solutes easily dissolve in water as compared to other polar solvents. Let's have an overview of global water resources. This is a kind of revision, as we can say, a review of the situation kind of thing. And most of the things I believe most of us know, so we'll be moving fast with this. Water always moves in hydrological cycle. As we just discussed, 97% of the total water is in oceans, and only 2.5 or 3% water is in the form of fresh water. Among this, again, there is a lot of water which is in the form of ice and snow. Groundwater is something 12%, fresh water is something around 1.8 or 1%. I know all of you being engineers, you are very meticulous with the figures, but there is no absolute estimation or quantification of the total water resource in the globe. So there may be differing figures with differing references. These are generally accepted kind of thing, and I would request these to be considered as trends instead of absolute figures. So what we see that there is very small quantity of fresh water available for us, and when we try to quantify it, we'll see that the total volume of earth water is something 1,386 million cubic kilometers, of which salt water is 1,344 million cubic kilometers. Fresh water is 35 million cubic kilometers, of which then ice caps, glaciers, groundwater, surface water. And if we distribute surface water further, we will find that rivers and streams only have 0.05 million cubic kilometer. And when we compute the total usable water, it comes to hardly 0.2%. So this is what we have to deal with. When we see about the water resources in India, we know the average rainfall is something around 1,170, and the total volume of precipitation is something 4,000 billion cubic meters BCM. 1 BCM is equal to 1 cubic kilometer. But then the total availability of the rainwater is 1,869 billion cubic meters, and the utilizable water within this is only 1,083, of which 690 is surface water and 393 is groundwater. And there are various demands, and all these demands are competing. So even when we see that with the available surface water or also with the available groundwater, the utilizable water portion is still lesser than the availability. This is the distribution of the utilizable surface water within the river basins. We will see that the highest available utilizable water is in Ganga basin, which is something 250 BCM, which is 36%. Very peculiar to note with Ganga and Brahmaputra basins is that the total available water within Ganga and Brahmaputra basin is something around 1,100 BCM, but utilizable water is only 275 BCM. So even having a large portion of available water, usable quantum is still less. Then we have Godavari, which has 76, that is 11%. Krishna has 8%, Kaveri has 3%, and further so. So in this way, if we see, this is the actual bifurcation or distribution of the surface water of say, something 690 BCM. Then the groundwater resources. The total groundwater resources, as we know, has a bifurcation of usable resource water, which is 393 BCM, and left for the natural discharge is something 39 BCM. So 91% of the groundwater resource is in the usable form. The distribution of the recharge distribution of this groundwater is 58% or 60%, something like that, from the monsoon rains. Then we have non-monsoon rains, which contribute to 16%. Something 8% is from non-monsoon others and the monsoon other component. Water resource. Now we have a glimpse of the water resource in Maharashtra. We have different river basins, and the maximum area covered is by Godavari basin, which is something around 50%. And Konkan area has the west flowing rivers, which contributes to something around 11% of the area. With the available water resources in Maharashtra, that is 163.82 BCM, we find that 69 BCM is in Konkan areas, whereas rest is in Godavari, Tapi, and Krishna basin. Out of this, out of the 163 BCM, we have something around 126 BCM, which is utilizable for Maharashtra. And the groundwater resource in Maharashtra is usable resource is something around 32 BCM, which is 95% of the total availability, of which 1.8 BCM is for natural discharge, is something 5%. The monsoon rainfall contributes to 66%. Very peculiar over here to note is that the non-monsoon other recharge is something around 24%, which is a big component which contributes to the recharge of groundwater in Maharashtra. And this comes mostly from the command areas, then of the major dams, then rivers, and also a lot of minor irrigation and medium irrigation projects completed in Maharashtra. These are the different uses which we all know. And there are off-stream uses, there are in-stream uses. Off-stream uses, the major contributor is agriculture, then thermoelectric power generation, industries, mining, drinking and domestic water, commercial purposes. And in the in-stream uses, it is hydropower, navigation, recreation, and ecosystem supports. Now, we all know water is life, but we also have to think that this water is now becoming a concern for life. So what are those specific reasons which drive us into this situation? Let's have a glimpse of the things. The annual precipitation, the annual global precipitation, if we see in this map, we will see that these parts in the globe have better rainfall as compared to other parts. So the brownish and darker parts have less rainfall. Less is something below 500 millimeters per year. So we'll see 65 to 70% of the globe has rainfall less than 500 millimeters per year. Now, while distributing all the rainfall and the usable pattern and all those things, we see that world over, there are three types of categories. Something which is required below, generally it is accepted that human population would require 1,700 cubic meters of water per person per year. So anything below 1,700 cubic meters per year per person is considered as water stress condition. Anything below 1,000 cubic meter per person per year is called water scarcity. And something below 500 cubic meters per person per year is termed as absolute scarcity. So these are some norms decided by the international organizations, and we will also try to see what it means for us. So if we see the global water availability, we will see that now the 65 to 70% of the globe shows bluish tint, which means that the global that the water availability per person per year is higher than what is required. So 65 to 70% of the world area is not in water stress. But very peculiar note over here is India, which has a better water availability in absolute terms, becomes water stress when we think about the per person per year availability. This probably has something to do with the population also, because similarly we see the situation in China. Now this is one which has been clipped from an additional resource, and this shows that during 1995 the groundwater abstraction in India as well as in China was very less as compared to what it would be in 2025. So India would be using more than 40% of the groundwater resource available, as well as China will also have more use of groundwater. But please mark here that in 95 there's a lighter tint of groundwater abstraction, and it is a darker tint in the adjoining countries up to the Gulf areas or Middle East. And we are somewhere coming into same tint by 2025. So this is also a concern for us. Then we also see what has been the per capita availability of different countries. Within these countries, if we see UK is under continuous water stress condition, but it has tried to manage itself from 1975 to 2000, and still it would try to manage itself up to 2025. China had dropped, but it has then tried to try to stabilize itself in 2025. India is dropping and still dropping further. So this is also a concern for us, where we need to put our efforts to at least stabilize where we were in 2000 or 2010. This concern is also a well-known fact that we have a very wide spatial variation of rainfall in India, which ranges from say 150 mm in Rajasthan to as high as 11,000 in Cherrapunji and Mawsynram. Then we also have a temporal variation where maximum of our rainfall will happen in June to September, that is JJAS pattern, what they say. But knowing all these, if we look into some major water supply, public water supply metropolitan, we will see many of these cities are having a supply of more than 200 or more than 150 liter per day per person, as against the standard norm of something 135 as decided by the ministry. So we need to also think, do we have that luxury to have a water supply of more than 200 liter per day per person, and how can we rationalize further to it? The availability and demand in India also speaks from these two graphs. The availability, as we see and rightly pointed out by Dr. Jain, we are nearing to the stress line, and by 2025 we would be then nearing to the water scarcity line, and by 2050 we unfortunately would be hitting this water scarcity line, which is something 1,000 cubic meter per person per year. And if we see towards the demand side, we will see that the total requirement of irrigation water is continuously increasing. It is very obvious because we have many challenges of the growing population, the food for it, and all those things. So we have to also live with this fact that this is going to increase and we will have to rationalize it further as per the availability and try to find a better balance. The projected water demand of India, as mentioned by the ministry, is something 830 in 2010, which with improved management can reduce to 710. In 2025, it would be 1993, which can be reduced to 843, and in 50, it would be 1447, which can be reduced to 1180. So these figures indicate us as what challenge we are posing further, because the utilizable water availability with us is 1083. So obviously we would be coming into that water scarcity condition by 2050. The status of groundwater in India reveals that there has been an increase in the semi-critical, critical, and overexploited watersheds. We all know that these are based on the annual recharge, abstraction of the annual recharge in those areas. So what we see that in the non-safe, that is the red colored ones, the non-safe assessment units are more in Punjab, Haryana, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, and Rajasthan, which contribute to 70%, 70%, yeah. And it is very peculiar to see that in Punjab and Haryana, in many of these units, the abstraction has gone beyond the annual recharge that's happening in these areas. So that's also a big concern for Punjab and Haryana. If Punjab, Haryana, Western UP face this problem, then probably we will have to compromise a bit with the food security also. So we have to think of alternatives as well as rationalizing our water uses. There are also groundwater quality issues in many of these assessment units. 30% of the assessment units in 9 states are having either fluoride, arsenic, or salinity. And most of these are in Assam, Haryana, Delhi, Punjab, Bihar, and Rajasthan. There are large number of habitations which are facing iron concentration, higher iron concentrations, and there are also bacterial contaminations observed which are happening because of seepages. This is a graph taken from the CGWB reports, and it indicates that there is high number of habitations which are having higher concentrations of iron. We also facing a very challenging issue of water pollution. This is the left figure is of Ganga River, which is Pavitra Ganga, we say. Then this figure is from South Africa, where the municipal corporation has, as a way, denied the basic right of its citizens to supply water around the year. And this is eutrophication, which is happening because of lake pollutions. Then these are the water quality status of some rivers, which were, there are also contemporary reports, but this is the report of 2005, which I found for myself for reference. And we see that of all these major rivers, we have some or there are some very high figures of the quality parameters, and these are quite alarming in some of the areas like Ganga, Yamuna, Krishna, Kaveri. These major rivers are having some serious water quality related problems. Then we also are facing climate change. We all know temperature is increasing globally, and what has been predicted by IITM and other researchers is that the temperature will increase all over the world. Similarly, it will also increase in India. There's a basic theory which says that hot air accumulates more vapor. So because of this theory, it is expected that there would be also a change in the rainfall or precipitation where there is increase in temperature. And these areas specifically, if we see, range from the Middle East to Indonesia. And this is a good part to see that the quantum of rainfall in the Indian subcontinent would increase. But simultaneously, it also has to be understood that along with the quantity, it is also expected that the rainfall intensity will increase. So whatever we used to say earlier as 65 mm heavy rainfall may now be thought as something more than 65 would be a heavy rainfall, or we may have more events of heavy rainfall. Now, if we see this same for Maharashtra, as per the Terry report, we'll see that the rainfall intensity and quantity is expected to increase in the northern part, that is Nandurbar, Dhule, Nashik, and all those parts. There would be a less increase or maybe some decrease also in the rainfall pattern in Sindhudurga and parts of Solapur. Now, if we superimpose with the temperature and the change in the rainfall pattern, we will see that the dry spell events will be more in the southern parts, and the ill-famed drought-prone area of Maharashtra, which is the rain shadow area, will have more dry spells, which would then further be a challenge for the cropping in these water stress areas. A study done by Sitara IIT Mumbai indicates that a water stress period has been observed in Sangamner, which ranges for about 30 days, which also surely will have an impact on the overall crop yield. Then the per capita availability of the different river basins in Maharashtra show that Tapi is under water scarcity condition, and Godavari, Krishna are also approaching to the water stress conditions. So to precipitate down, what are the major concerns? Spatial and temporal variation of rainfall is a concern. Reducing per capita availability, which increases water stress. Then food requirement of the increasing population, which we expect that it would increase by 30% by 2050. Overexploitation of groundwater, water quality issues, a narrow perspective of conservation concept, and the climate change implications. So some of these, like the population control or the rainfall pattern or the climate implications, probably are not in our hand. But then groundwater use or surface water use, quality protection, and a change in the perspective of water conservation, these are in our hands, and we need to deal with these topics. So what is the way forward? That again the same thing, to start with small. So the first and foremost thing is think beyond and act beyond. Please don't think that it has to be a responsibility to be done by someone else, and then there would be a GR, then there would be a policy, and then people will start working. No, probably it is a very hard time to say that we should start from wherever we are, and we should contribute with whatever we can. Even a smallest thing can make a change. These are some of the water calculations which we normally know, that 1000 mm rainfall on 1 hectare will yield 0.1 hectare water. Consider a village of 500 hectares which has a rainfall of 500 millimeter, which would yield something 2500 million liters. And if a small village like 500 hectares which has a population of 1000 and a cattle population of 1000 would require 55 million liters of water, which is something 2% of the total rainwater in that small village. And it is difficult to understand that we are unable to manage this 2% requirement of the village. If we see in Pune metropolitan area, which is 570 square kilometers, the rainfall of 700 millimeter yields something 4 lakh million liters. And for a population of 60 lakh with 135 LPD requirement, the requirement is something 3 lakh million liters, which is 75% of the rainwater. So it shows that even in these areas, if with a strengthened perspective of water conservation, we still can manage with the water resources. Take an example of CCT, which we all know. A CCT, a 15 to 20 hectare of CCT, even in drought-prone area like Hivre Bazar or Ralegarh Siddhi, can serve the drinking water need of 1000 population at 55 liters per day per person. There are many other benefits of having CCTs in degraded areas or wastelands. Then we all know about rainwater harvesting. A 50 square meter of roof and 100 square meter of a plot can can better yield us 1,000 liters of drinking water and 25,000 liters of recharge water, which generally can be said is sufficient for a family of 5. Then we have artificial aquifer recharge, which has now developed as a very good science, and it is imperative to take on these activities because of the heterogeneous geology and which poses aquifer challenges. Then because also that we know that cities and towns where buildings and roads have reduced the recharge potential. A recent study done by Aquadam on Pune aquifer shows that estimates that 5 TMC or 40 million groundwater use is there in Pune, which is something about 45% of the total requirement at 135 LPD. And if in the near future we are unable to recharge this groundwater in Pune metro area, probably Pune will also be facing a lot of problem where groundwater is also an important source of water for the Pune metropolitan population. We know watershed development, which is a small unit for the villages, and it has proven very successful over the decades. We also need to think that we have to have an integrated approach. We cannot say that sanitation department will do its own work, industries will do its own work, MPCB will do its own work, water supply will do its own work. We need to have an integrated approach in all these things. And if we integrate it, probably potable water, rainwater, grey water, all can be reclaimed and used in different ways. So the inclusive approach which can be drawn down is first and foremost is it is not a task of one and not a task done once. So we'll have to do it continuously. We need to acknowledge that water is part of ecosystem and serves the ecosystem. Water is a resource must for life and it will be used. Its use cannot be stopped. It is required and it will go on. Water conservation is beyond rainwater harvesting. Water is a very dynamic resource and it cannot be settled down in one place. And the biggest boon we have is that India has a historical wisdom of water management. We know that Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, which were something 2,500 years earlier existing, were very prosperous towns and had the luxuries even of having swimming tanks. So there is a good historical wisdom in India, which we need to fetch, go back, start from the basics, and then make these contemporary. The inclusive nature for the inclusive approach for today would be start saving, harvesting, securing, and recycling. Water quality, quantity, and productivity all have to be the core. Focus on water literacy. River basin, sub-basin should be the planning units. We need to have a 3-pronged strategy, which is a micro level where we have a village watershed. A macro level, we have a urban watershed. Now we cannot deny with the concept of urban watershed. Because of the increasing urbanization, we need to deal with urban watersheds also. And the mega is the river basin approach. There is a very strong need to have an integrated, coordinated, multi-sectoral approach, and that should surely help us to take us ahead. I would like to acknowledge for the references I have made for this. Apart from the few slides, most of the data information has been drawn from secondary sources where my personal contribution has been very, very less. And therefore, I really wish to thank all those experts who have put all their efforts and brains in developing all these reports, presentations. I also thank Pune Aquifer, the Aquadam for the research study done on Pune aquifers. I wish we really think hard on what Sant Kabir says. Rahiman pani rakhiye, bin pani sab sun. Pani gaye na ubre, moti manus chun. Thank you. I hope it gives a food for thought and a contemporary view to think about water conservation and think beyond all these difficulties and move ahead with a strong positivity for the next coming years. Thank you very much. Ma'am.